Hello and welcome to UX Leadership by Design. I'm your host, Mark Baldino. I'm also the co founder of Fuzzy Math. Fuzzy Math is the user experience design consultancy that brings consumer grade UX to business applications for B2B and enterprise tools. Today, I speak with Pablo Stanley, an artist, a title he only recently became comfortable calling himself. And we get into the trials and tribulations and triumphs of leading creatives, but especially what it means and what it takes for creatives to lead other creatives. And of course, some of the areas of joy that can only come from leading a creative team. We start the conversation discussing his formative years he spent in a gang as their quote creative department, which was AKA the graffiti artist, and then into his journey of becoming a creative director, and now is the CEO and founder of multiple companies, including Musho and Lumi, both of which are AI tools aimed at helping people unlock their creative potential. So, of course, we get into AI and creativity. Should designers be afraid, excited, a bit of both? But Pablo is, as he likes to say, a techno optimist. And while we discuss both sides of these equations, he really sees a bright future ahead of us. We cover a lot. It's a great conversation. Pablo is part storyteller and part philosopher. So I think you're going to enjoy it. And thanks as always for listening. Pablo, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mark, man.
No,
So cool.
thank you for joining me. We've had some pre conversations, and they've been a good laugh. And part of the podcast is, as a guest said to me last year, this should be fun, right? We should have a good time. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to our conversation today. Hopefully, it's enjoyable for you and the audience. You are up to, or have been up to, a lot in reading your bio. Can you give the audience a little bit of your background?
How far do you want to go? Because we could go. Yeah, you're right. There's been a lot of stuff. Well, I, I, I mean, I'm a designer. I can say that I think I'm an artist that found his way into design stuff because that's I very very soon realized that being an artist was not going to make me a living.
Right.
you know, so I was like, I need to do something different. Yeah, I've been doing design for a very long time, man, and been from. Uh, uh, I mean, we can go back to when I was a teenager and I used to do graffiti. Like I consider that like part of my design
Yeah, your
adventure. You
design
know,
career for sure.
yeah, I was a
What got
creative
you into doing
director.
graffiti?
Yeah. I mean, back in those days, it was like the graffiti was part of the. I I mean, I'm from the hoods in Mexicali, like a little town in a border town, and back in those days, there was no internet or anything. So, what do you do if you are a teenager in those not so great neighborhoods? You join a band, like a gang.
Okay.
So, like, hey, we had a gang, and like I don't know, part of our there was the creative department in the gang, let's say that, and
You were on the
I was
creative team?
ahead. I was the head of the creative department, the creative director of our gang, and like graffiti was part of that thing, you know. Other than going and being angry at other gangs, which we didn't know. I still don't understand the whole point. Is like, oh, you live in a different neighborhood. I hate you now. It was so dumb. but what really attracted me was like, well, I suppose the sense of community because like those who you grow up with that are like live close to you. There was no internet, so those were the people that you knew, you know. So hey, we formed our gang, and but for some reason other neighborhoods were the enemy. So dumb. Such a I don't know, uh, like old school mentality. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, ever since then I've been trying to just put my creative side to work.
What were you like an artist before you started doing graffiti, or was that your first like artistic outlet?
Oh, I mean, like I suppose like I suppose we all drew when we were kids. We'll did all doodles and we're like,
Yeah.
oh, paint and do stuff. I just never stopped. Usually, they there's someone that tells you stop doing that. Now do serious things like math and English. So I suppose like nobody said you should stop, Pablo. You should stop doodling. So yeah, like I suppose like a lot of artists, that just what happened, that nobody, or somehow they just like never stop doing that creative stuff that we all are born with, and we're all born with the need to express ourselves with stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm at that age where when I'm okay calling myself an artist. Like it's been a struggle for forever, because I've always said like, oh no, I'm not an artist. No, no, no. Artists are real artists. Like I don't know, like the whole thing where you always like compare yourself to others, and you see others that are great artists and you're like, those are the real artists. So only until now I'm like, no, maybe you are an artist, Paulo, and it's okay to be an artist. Maybe the standards are lower to become an artist.
No, maybe you're. I don't want to speak for you. Maybe you're more comfortable. You feel less like an imposter these days. I mean, you've made it a career. How did you? You mentioned the transition of no one's going to maybe pay me to be an artist. Like, what was your transition from it being an outlet as a teen in a border town to it's kind of like you have professional aspirations that you want to make a career out of this? Was that a gradual transition, or did you really just set your mind to it one day?
There's, I don't know, like it's is the cliche of the artist that doesn't think about those things. I am totally that cliche. I really don't think about like, oh, how am I going to monetize this? Like I never, I my mind doesn't go to that, and it should. It I like there's some switch that I need to turn on in my head to be able to turn on the capitalist, the artist capitalist, like thinks of like, oh, let's put a value to this. It's just like
Yeah,
my mind has never been able to think that way. But on design, I just like it's I've been fortunate. I think we're all been very fortunate, just like whoever is like out there who's a designer. uh I'm willing to bet that those who choose that path, that career, is because uh, there's a little bit of passion towards that, and there's also like kind of a little bit of edge and a little bit of coolness of being a designer. So hey, I don't know, like uh, just it's been something that it just becomes natural, because I enjoy it and I like it, and I like doodling and putting things together and make sense out of stuff. So it's never been like really like a like consciously thinking about how this will become a career. It has never been like that in my head, and I don't know, like I suppose that's also why um, when you have that mentality, maybe you allow yourself to do like more stupid stuff, and which stupid stuff that suddenly becomes less stupid and
yeah,
more real.
yeah. It's
uh
the freedom you granted yourself, or you were able to grant to sort of explore and maybe not have a financial component to it. But
yeah,
obviously took it seriously. I mean, you've founded a number of companies. You're not just an artist or a creative. You lead groups of human beings, and you're
yeah.
designing, building tools like that. All gradual over time. It's like, okay, I'm gonna I'm now gonna go from being an artist to a leader, or like, what was that transition like for you?
I mean, it just became natural too. I like right now, by the way, I don't know if you can see, but this is not my usual place. I'm actually at my parents' house,
Okay.
and and it's like weird paintings, my mom. But mm, I'm here and I'm back in my border town. I don't live here anymore, but I'm here back to play with a band that I used to play when I was a teenager. We still play. It's a punk rock band that we have been playing ever since we were teenagers. And we're now we're old and fat. But we're still playing and we still find it fun. But I was the other day I was like talking to one of my bandmates, and I told him, dude, like we weren't aware of this, but we were 16, 17, and we're already preparing ourselves for the world, because it was like different minds with different musical tastes getting together to do music, to do music together, being in sync, like to be in a band, and like every weekend we had a show, and to be ready for the show, well, you had to rehearse, and you had to rehearse like almost daily, and you had to like get in there and like I will be the one, they would create the songs and all that stuff. So I'll have to come in and convince the other guys, hey, this is how it is, and this is how the song should be. Be open to feedback, and then say, oh, your feedback sucks. Like, no, do it my way. Even then, uh, like I wasn't planning on, oh, I'm going to create a band now to prepare myself for being a leader in the future. It's just like, hey, I just
Right.
wanted to make a band. you know
Right.
but but like looking back, we, i was I was telling my friend, dude, that was preparing us for a lot of stuff that you live as an adult. That as an adult you have to deal with other teammates, and here there were bandmates, and we're all like different, and we have different opinions and different tastes, but we all have to like, even when all those differences exist, like a have some kind of Venn diagram between our ideas, and just like pull forward and push forward and just like create something. And I was like, dude, like we didn't realize that, but that prepares for a lot of stuff in the future that now we apply, just like in our jobs and professional stuff and
Right.
everything. But we were doing it then. Like we're doing a lot of the things that we're already also doing. That is just like push a product, have a deadline. And the deadline was the gig that was like that Friday. And sometimes same Friday, we had like 3 gigs that we had to go to. So it was like preparing a lot, and just like rehearsing and all that stuff. I don't know. It's like, and I'm pretty sure that those are things that exist, maybe not just in a band, but it also exist like in sports, or
Yeah.
now kids like play a lot in video games, and they get together, and I see my nephew that that's all he does. He's always getting his headphones and just playing Roblox. And but it's like, oh, what are you doing there, man? And it's like, oh no, he starts telling me like, hey, well, I'm getting together with my friends, and we're like going into tournaments and stuff. It's like, oh, cool, man. Like you're doing stuff that I used to do too, that it's preparing me to the world to deal with other human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh and so yeah, I suppose like what I'm trying to say is like a that we sometimes don't realize that a lot of stuff that we're doing is preparing us for other things in our lives. And now like and like being like now I'm well, I have a couple of companies, and I get to be Mr. CEO. and uh, and the whole idea is just like a forming a team and just like other people and creating a culture. It's it's hard, it's fun, but it's hard because like people are different, people have their own things, and it's hard to everyone get aligned to with a common goal. And even though we all have our lives and our opinions and our visions and our passions and our own things, we all have to come together as a team and bring whatever makes sense of our own things and put it together with the rest of them, and build something together. And that is I don't know, I don't know, I'm just being lucky, man, that I just found really nice people, really cool people, and talented people that have had that I somehow convinced them to come do stuff
Join.
with me.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, I think it is an interesting sort of connection to what you're doing as a teenager, now being putting on the sort of CEO hat. And if I'm reading between the lines, you're a little bit of the CEO of the band, at least in terms of like you were kind of directing some things. I don't know if that's the right
Yeah.
word because I've never been in a band, but like, what is the what are the unique like benefits or challenges of doing that with a group of creatives versus, let's say, I don't know, not non-creative people, but I mean people who are artists, consider themselves artists, take that seriously. Like, what are some of the challenges, but also some of the triumphs of leading a team of creatives?
Uh, I mean, uh, when you're a creative, there's a lot of hands-on work. Like when you're a designer, you're I don't know, maybe a painter. Talk about designers specifically, or maybe even coders, like developers. And it's like you value yourself sometimes, with the amount of pixels you push,
Mhm.
and the amount of screens you build, and the prototypes, and the connections you make, and the presentations you make. So it's suddenly your value comes from all the craft that you put and all those things you put out there. And suddenly when you are on the manager side, well, you're doing way less from that, and so you might feel lost because uh, as a creative, well, you were creating before, and now you're not creating. You're more like allowing others to create, and you are pushing others to do the stuff that you know that you could do. You know that you could just like open the file and just do it yourself, and maybe even quicker, and sometimes even better. But that's because these other people are like going through that process too, to learn all those things that you have also that took you some time to also learn. And so the challenges are like like being hands off. Like that's one of the main challenges that I found. And I, for example, recently, man, we've been working on a new UI stuff on a product that we're building, and I will find myself just getting in the Figma file and just like doing it myself.
Right.
And but I'll feel guilty of doing it because like there's designers who are supposed to do that, and my job should not be there build it for them. It should be just, well, guiding them so they can just build it. And also, I don't want the designers to just like follow exactly what I tell them to do. Sometimes I do. So it's like, just do what I want you to do.
Right.
Just don't
Right. Doesn't
don't
feel very
iterate.
creative. It doesn't feel very creative, does it? Just do what I want you to do.
I know.
I'm
It's
going to
just like,
stand over your
trust
shoulder
me.
here, or I'm going to follow you around in Figma. And no, no,
Yeah.
no, no, do that, do that, do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
that
No.
doesn't
No.
feel very creative, which creates a little bit of attention, right? You want to foster
Yeah.
creativity on the team, but it's like you're trying to also kind of direct them as well.
Yeah. There's like this kind of balance between what is like micromanaging and guidance, where it's like you sometimes it's easier to just tell them, don't do that. It's a mistake. Don't even try it. And I'll explain to you later. We have to move on. We have a deadline. We have to like be quick, and for people to uh, and if you do that, well, you might be able to move faster, but also people might resent you for you just telling them that and not allowing them to make those mistakes. Or and it might not be a mistake. Maybe it's just my bias that sometimes it didn't work. Maybe one time it didn't work, and now it will never work. Now my head is stuck with that idea. So I'm not allowing. uh, if you get in and you start putting those kinds of things, you're not allowing them to explore new things, discover new ideas, and also maybe also make that mistake that you made back then. So I think it's a little bit of that, just like knowing when to guide and when to just tell them, hey, that's not the right path. This is why. So don't try it. Don't do
Right.
it. Do it this way, and just trust me, and you'll see why later. Maybe it's not so obvious right now.
Right.
So and to do that, you have to also build that the trust. Like on the other side, if if they don't see you, if they don't respect you, if you don't respect your work,
Yep.
you're gonna be like, ah, Paula, shut up.
It's not going to matter.
So for that, you have to, well, as a leader, like as cliche as it sounds, like you have to lead by example sometimes too, and just like do it yourself, be there, and get your hands dirty a little bit so they can see that you know what you're talking about. You know how to use the tool too.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know how to push the pixels. But it's like, hey, all of that stuff, all of that crap, I'm leaving that to you, and just trust me more on the guidance and more um, on the vision. So
Right.
that is one thing. The micromanaging, the being hands off. Um, I mean, and there's other things that are just like regular manager stuff that is not exactly for creatives, but uh, which I suppose no. Hold on, it might actually be a little bit for regarding creatives because like I it's a little controversial, but I actually I kind of promote work life integration and not so much about separation, not so much about balance. It's like, hey, what do you want to bring from your life, from your hobbies, from your interests into work? And it's like, hey, that way work feels less of work and feels more like something that is yours too, and that is based on your interests and your ideas too. And that applies to creatives because like, well, creatives, they might have their own interests, they might have their own new techniques or new technologies that they're learning, and they might, sometimes you just need an excuse to learn more, and it's like, hey, well, bring that here and let's experiment here at work and do that stuff. But that is promoting something that is like usually the opposite of what they tell you to promote. Hey, you want to have a balance, you want to have a separation between work and life. And and for me, sometimes for creatives, it's actually cool to be like, ah, the lines are a little bit blurry, and it's okay that they're blurry. And so it's okay that some of this stuff feels personal, and make it personal, and just convince us, and show that passion that you have for something, and
Yeah.
we're all going to follow you on that passion, because if something is interesting to you and that feels close to you, we're all going to want to get in on board and just like follow you on that thing that is interesting to you. So I that is one thing that I also that I think we try to promote, where it's like whenever it makes sense. It's not like a suddenly like your work is your life. It's not like that. It's more like a
Right.
promoting more like a there the lines can be blurring. That's okay.
Yeah. Bring
Um,
your kind of more along the lines
yeah,
of kind of bringing your full self to what you're doing and some of your passion versus, hey, if you're going to be part of this initiative, you're going to work whatever 80 hours a week. It's not. That's I think when people hear work life balance, they're like, wait. That to me says something that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. And what you're advocating for is like trying to leave parts of you behind in your work. And if you can bring things you're passionate about and integrate it into your creative process, like that's probably going to produce a better result, probably more traction
yeah.
and communication and, decision make alignment on your team.
For everyone, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like for the company is better because like, hey, well, we have more motivated employees. They're working on something that they like doing. So as a cold-blooded capitalist, oh well, more efficient employees, good. you
Right.
know,
Right. 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 Right.
but also, what was that?
No, I said right. Just agreeing.
Yeah, it's like, oh well, more motivated employees means more efficient, and that's good. Uh, but also, I think for the employee, for the one crafting the stuff, well, they feel more motivated and feel like it's like, I don't know, it suddenly work feels less like work and it feels more like fun.
Yeah.
So we try to do that. It like sometimes it's not possible because we just have a deadline. We have to do it. Uh, we have to do it if we don't like it, and we just have to push it. But hey, we try to do that, and and yeah, it's just like a lot of different things that you start realizing as you go, and when you start wearing the manager hat. And I think another thing that maybe well, designers, creatives, or just we, I think we crave control. Like, I mean, I don't, I think people don't remember this, but back Figma took a while for designers to accept it because of the whole idea of sharing the file
100%. A
that
100%.
others like people don't forget this, but it took a while for Figma to be accepted by the design community because for a very long time we liked the idea of working isolated, of working at a place where I have control and don't look at it until it's perfect. It's not ready there. It's not finished. So please don't open it. So and I mean, I know that there's some designers that still do that, where they will have their private file where they do the stuff. There, no one is invited, and they will only copy paste the stuff once it's ready to the Figma file that
Yes.
everybody's invited to, which is like so insane. But there's a little bit of that too, right? Where you want to have that perfection and control, and I don't know. There's some kind of culture of making mistakes, and by if you make mistakes, well, there's shame on that, and well, nobody likes shame, right? So I think there's a little bit of that. I don't want people seeing something that is unfinished because then they're going to judge my unfinished pixels, and if my pixels are unfinished, then my value is less or something.
Yep.
So. Uh, like when you are on the leadership role, well, you want to bring people together, you don't want those kind of silos to happen. That's number one. And you don't want that isolation to happen. You want to people to collaborate, and so you have to fight that part, and that part that is maybe not on your team, that maybe it's just on you too, that even you, when you make decisions and stuff, and instead of uh, trying to uh, put in those decisions or that strategy, that thing that is like brewing in your head, put in on the table so we can discuss it. You only present it until you think it's ready, which is almost like I will only present you the design file when it's ready. It's a little bit like that also when you have I let me think about this plan and I will present it once it's ready. And it's you're I don't know, it's you're suddenly decisions get centralized where you create a bottleneck because like people are waiting for you to decide what to do instead of putting it on the table. It's like, this is what I'm thinking, what do you guys think? Maybe I'm dumb, and so that is one problem that can cause like that I seen myself get into that trap. I seen myself get into the trap of centralizing decisions where because of that control that sometimes I crave, where you should actually let others to contribute on what they want to contribute, and just like allow them to make the decisions that they they will potentially know better what to do because they know the context. They're right there with the problem. They live it daily. So for them, they will potentially have a better understanding of what to do. So you have to give that autonomy to people. You have to give that authority too, to say like, hey, you have the authority to make decisions and feel confident. And if you make a mistake, well, we'll discuss those mistakes. Try to be right, but but if we make a mistake, we'll talk about it later, and that's okay. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, uh, like as a designer coming from that culture of perfectionism, I think I still struggle with that. Where it's like, perfectionism is the enemy. Perfectionism is a myth,
Yeah.
and you should allow people to make mistakes. You should allow yourself to make mistakes. You should allow to collaborate and not crave that control that maybe you had with your design file that was hidden in a secret folder that nobody could see. It's
Yeah.
not like that. As a leader, you have to share all that stuff. So,
It's
uh,
tough though. I mean, like I have a hard time, especially when I feel like I'm responsible for other people on my team and them paying their mortgage and, living the life they want to live. The idea of giving up a lot of control is really, and this is from a creative, this is personality perspective, right? Like it's just hard to do and trust that it's gonna work. But I've found, and I think the biggest mistakes I've made as a leader is when in those moments when I've gripped really, really tightly, tried to control everything, it ended up creating a
mm,
bunch of problems and just
yeah,
disaster. And it's when
yeah,
I've
yeah.
step back a little bit, take a breath, and let other people handle things and do things, even if we're facing a challenging time from the business or with a challenging client. When I've given
Mm,
them that space to grow and learn, make mistakes, but also to deliver because I really trust my team. Like
yeah,
it always ends up better. But my personal first inclination is I'm going to grab this as tight as possible and hold on for as
yeah,
long as I can. It's really hard.
yeah. And sometimes it's not a, it's not because you don't trust your team or something. It's because like sometimes you feel like it's your responsibility. I have to
100%.
fix this,
Yeah.
and no, you have to let go. No, it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it is kind of your responsibility, but it's more your responsibility to allow others to solve that problem, right?
Yeah.
uh
What
and
are what are like the flip side of this equation? Like what do you love about or enjoy about leading creatives? Like what are some of the triumphs that you've shared with your team that if you weren't, I know you have obviously probably have non at this point non-creatives on your team, but specifically speaking about those folks that are creatives, like what are the joys of that?
uh by the way, all this time I've been talking about creatives, as in specifically the stereotypical who is creative and who isn't creative, as in like the artists or the designers. But
Sure.
I think on our team, at least out of the company, we try to strive for everyone is creative. We just
Yeah.
like creative in a different way. And I seen that actually like developers are really creative, and then
Yep.
that, like, you once you start realizing what they're actually doing, it's like, oh my god, how do you get to that? Anyway, just wanted to say that. But sorry, what was the question now? And I got
Well, just
distracted, I'm
we've been
sorry.
talking about some of the challenges of leading, and maybe going from like where you were an individual contributor up to a manager to a leader, and I always think that's helpful because I think people can resonate with that. But like, what's the flip side of it? What have been some of those moments of joy or triumphs in your leadership arc?
I think I mean, there's some things that I feel proud of that we have been able to work with. Not as I mean, number one, I love working with my team, and I feel just blessed on on everything they do, and how committed they are. So, uh, it, one thing that you have to learn is to take see their successes as your success too, as like a as something that you also like contributed to. So their success for me is like, a it's really, I don't know, it's really empowering to me, and just like I feel really proud. So I have learned to do that. uh so it feels really good, because then when people are striving and doing their best, then I don't know, it's really cool to just see people like learn and grow together and do stuff together. But some stuff that I feel now, years later, that on these things that we have tried, and that now it's like, hey, yeah, this kind of worked. But it's like we try to at least have one day a week where it's like no meetings allowed. Like, a Fridays, no meetings are allowed. Sometimes we have to break the rule, but we try to keep it, and that's I don't know, like, that's nice. Also, no, sorry, my puppy
No
is
worries.
barking. I don't know what, a ghost or something. Uh, there's we have no performance reviews.
Oh wow.
Like, I've always hated that stuff, dude. And I mean, we do I don't know if you can hear the puppy. It's kind of
Barely.
barking
No
our way.
worries.
Uh, uh, More like we promote a people to ask for feedback, and but like being actionate. I mean, more proactive and not waiting until the end of the year or until like the second quarter when that happens, because that, like, I don't know, it's always been just like very stressful, that stuff, and it feels like it's forced, and you don't really get like actually good results. And I don't know, everyone feels bad from that stuff. And it's like, so it's like, why do you want to do that kind of stuff that like just makes everyone feel bad? Like,
Right.
but promote the idea. I mean, feedback is valuable, and just like
Sure.
asking for feedback, and but like ask for it right away, don't wait for it later, you know. So we promote that instead of waiting for a performance review, and just like, hey, just and if there's also something that needs to be feedback, just give it. Don't
Right.
hold it, you know. And
Yeah.
so that's another thing that I think we tried. And on the flip side, as like, a when you create your own team and your own culture, you get to make those kinds of decisions, you know. And you get to say, this is how we think we should work. The So that is something that I think we'll feel really proud of. Different little things of how we think that we work a little bit differently. And even I mean, we were a COVID era company. That's when we started, so we were forced to work remotely. And but that's also that we just something that we have kept. It's just like a promoting working from anywhere,
Yeah.
and just allowing people to even travel, you know, and just like, hey, get inspired and go see the world, you know. And just show up for the Slack threads, you know, and
Yeah.
just like comment on the Slack threads that are important, because like sometimes a lot of discussions happen there. But that's it. Just do your work, and that's it, you know. And so I that's another thing that I feel really proud that we have been able to work that way. uh, there's still a lot of value in just like getting together, and
Yep.
that's it's so important. But also just like, hey, allowing people to not being checking on them, and just like, hey, are you doing your work? Just trusting that they will do it, and from wherever they are. It can be challenging with all the time zones, man, because sometimes we have a person in Australia, and I feel like
It's a tough
he
one.
gets the worst. It's
Yeah.
awful for him. He's it's or afternoons or other people's more like that, because we have also people in Europe. So it's just like, for him, it's just really, he does struggle a lot.
Yeah. You got to get
uh,
your asynchronous collaboration like kind of
yeah,
down and make sure that there's space for that stuff. It is true, but I mean, obviously love this idea of kind of fostering creativity within your team. I would personally be remiss if I didn't ask you about some of the tools you're creating, um, because they're AI design tools, and
mm,
I think, and I'd love to hear your take on how they're what you see AI and sort of unlocking and pushing and promoting creativity, because I see a lot of tension in the design community around generative AI tools, and some people embrace it, some people are terrified of it, some people are right in the middle. Like, you're in the space, right? And it sounds like you're building tools that are helping, that are leveraging AI to help people with creativity. So if you could just talk about the tools, and then if that balance makes sense of like where people fall on this spectrum of like love, hate, fear, in terms of AI.
yeah. I understand the opposition, and I understand the concerns and the fears. I totally see why. I I consider myself more of a, I don't know if that's the right term, but more of a techno optimist, or like I see technology with a very optimistic thinking, which sometimes has led us to, uh, I don't know, to some places where we don't want to be as a civilization, I guess. But we have also dealt with technology in a way that has kept us alive. And, s- and thinking on those doomsday scenarios are it's almost like not like ignoring everything we have gone through and ignoring that we have been able to just we have been able to adapt to everything. So I, there's going to be a turbulent time, and that turbulent time arrived really quickly. But I'm sure that we will adapt, and this will be for the better. So, and specifically for creatives and designers, like I can see why the concerns where it's like, oh, my craft is obsolete and my nobody's going to need my work. But I don't know, has anyone actually used these things? Like they're okay, they're good, but they're not. They don't make a lot of the things that you still need a human, for a lot of these things. And these are more like ways to just unblock yourself. I see this like, oh, suddenly, like, there's no excuse for me to being creatively blocked. Like this thing can just help me get the creative block out of the way. Uh, and overcoming that, and just like there's no excuse for me to not try a lot of different things and see how multiple different things look, and then from there take a direction that I really like, because these things are really good at that, are really good at just like giving you a lot of crappy ideas
Yeah.
or like
Or-
so ideas,
yeah.
generic stuff. And then from there, just like you still need the human who selects the good stuff. And if anything, we have already been doing this for a while. The mood boards have
Yep.
existed for a long time, and mood boards are that. Like take AI as a really quick mood board maker, where it's like it creates a lot of same thing. It just puts it in different styles and puts it in different ways for you to choose. And it's like, oh, okay, I like this, I like this. And then you start crafting. And like, for example, I see that like in the development of a product or uh, anything, you have your strategy when you're thinking of pre-production, then there's the stage where you're doing the production, and then there's that stage where you're doing all the finessing, all the little details. You're going back and just like, oh, what about this? What about this other thing? And traditionally, without AI, I think we have been like the middle part has been taking so much of our time, whereas all the production stuff, all the putting the blocks together, and co- recreating blocks that are already established and patterns that already exist, and just recreating them for the sake of recreating them. And I think AI actually just like makes that part way shorter. And that way, suddenly we have a lot of time on the finessing, which traditionally, usually is since it's the last part, is usually the deadline is tomorrow. So all the details, all the, hey, did you try it in a different way? Did you try it like this? Ah, well, push that, because like we didn't have time for other ways to do it. Suddenly we have a lot of time for doing that. And I see it that way, where it's like, hey, no, yeah, it's doing a lot of the it is getting really good at that middle part. But humans are still needed on that all that finessing. And that's suddenly we have more time for that. And now we have, even for the strategy, I see that yeah, it's really good at that stuff too sometimes. So even on the strategy, at least get us started on ideas and just like ideating like what a product could be, what directions we could take. I think AI can help us on that stuff, but it's really the human parts on that last part that has usually been really the thing that we just spend so little time, and we always wish, oh man, if I had had just one more week, if I had just
Yeah.
one more hour, I would have finished this little thing and this little detail,
Yeah.
now suddenly we have the time for that. That's
Yeah.
how I see it. I know it's an oversimplification of that, but that's mm, suddenly like on what we spend our time on has shifted. That's
Yes.
how I see it.
Yeah. It's
And
I like that idea. The first part of like unblocking if we're stuck.
yeah.
The other part of that is like there's things in my job I don't love to do that AI is like
Mm,
really good at, and that is a way to unblock me or unstick me from something. And then to
yeah.
your last point, that frees me up to do things I'm really good at, or maybe even I enjoy, or are the most valuable in what I'm trying to do. And so it's like when you can kind of flip the equation of no, it's going to give me more time. It's going to give me more freedom. It's going to
Yeah.
allow me to be more impactful at what I'm doing, and maybe even allow me to be more creative. It's a good kind of flip of some of the kind of negative connotations that I think Gen AI is getting these days.
Yeah, it's I mean, uh, the negative comments on this. By the way, I do understand all the comments on image generation, on for example photographers, illustrators,
Yeah,
where they have seen that their uh, work has been used to train some of these models. I totally understand that, and I mean, a court will have to decide what is going to happen with all that, because it's should because usually artists are the ones who get screwed always.
yep, yep, yep,
And on this, it's very clear that artists are getting screwed, and so I'm all for models that are trained on all human knowledge. I am like super stoked for it, but it does worry me that all of those who have created all that content that has helped these things to be super fast and super good at just like knowing everything, that they're not being compensated. And and I think uh, uh I think artists are right on being concerned about these a lot of these models being trained on their work without their consent.
yeah,
I think uh, that's not for us to decide. There'll have to be, I don't know, some in a court. There has to be some regulation that says what is the right way about this, and what is the ethical and lawful way of that this should have been done. The thing is that these companies are in a race, to see who is the one that gathers the most data, because the more data you gather, the more data you scrape, the more data you grab, the better your models become. And so it's typical Silicon Valley behavior, where it's like a don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness later,
yep,
which uh has created this, like, now suddenly we realize, like, hey, okay, this imaging models are really good. Like, how did they become that good? Like,
yeah,
where's all this data coming from? Like, it wasn't just it was obviously with all n- the knowledge that exists, all the stuff that our civilization has created. And so I don't know, I'm looking forward to knowing what this will be decided on all this. I feel like we're in that, like, early 2000s Napster era,
yep,
where we didn't know what was happening with, suddenly we were able to just stream music and, well, not even stream, just download all the MP3s in the world. It's like, oh my god, we're going crazy with all the
yep,
downloads that we're getting from the internet. But a court of law had to decide what was fair, and so uh, we'll see what is fair. I I'm going to say something controversial. I see it on the other side too. I see the other side where it says, like, hey, well, these things are trained on all the art and all the knowledge that is out there, just as any other human is. Just like when you go and read a book as a human, well, a lot of that knowledge will get into your brain and to your brain model, and then suddenly you will speak out and say words that are kind of based on what you just read, or they're also maybe you go into to a museum, or you buy a book from an artist you like, and you see that stuff and it gets into your brain, and suddenly a lot of that stuff is, we call it inspiration, and that inspiration gets into your brain and your output is inspired. There's a lot of that stuff gets into your brain and suddenly you create something new. But that's the claim that I see, that I hear from the other side. Well, it's just the same. It's just these models are just like a brain that is also grabbing stuff and then creating something new, inspired by other work. I kind of believe that too. I was like, that kind of sounds fair too.
Yeah.
I kind of agree too. So hey, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think your techno optimist approach, and also pragmatic as well, which I appreciate. Well, I think it's a good way to wrap up the conversation. And thanks for allowing me to drag us into AI, because I think your views on it are really interesting, and I think the audience is really going to enjoy it. If people want to reach out and contact you, connect with you, where are the best places for that, Pablo?
Oh man, well, we're working on a tool called Lumi, so you guys should check it out. It's Lumi with double M, LUMMI dot AI, and that's just like an for whoever needs images. Now we're doing illustrations, we're doing music, we're doing a lot of different assets for whoever needs the stuff for their creations. We have AI generated stuff from other artists, so it's kind of cool. So
Cool.
you should check it out. And me myself, Pablo Stanley, anywhere.
Anywhere. Awesome. We will
Yeah.
link to you, to your LinkedIn, and definitely to Lumi so people can check it out. Just want to say thank you so much for your time and energy and the conversation today. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Mark. This is so nice, and thanks for thoughtful questions. Yeah, that it's always nice to talk about those things because I never get. I don't know that you build this platform for others to talk about these things because I work on this stuff, but I don't get to really philosophize about it too much, and just
Yeah.
like talk about it. So thank you for creating a platform for that.
You are welcome. I love it. This is these conversations are my favorite part of my day. So it's been fantastic for me as well. And I know the audience will enjoy it. So thanks again, Pablo.
Thank you, man.